Tuesday, May 9th, 2017, and we'll open our city council meeting. We recognize many that are with us this evening. We welcome you. We've got a number of proclamations tonight, and I know some of you are here for that, so we'll move forward on that. Again, reminding everyone that we are recording the proceedings this evening. We have MCM, McMinnville Community Media, that's recording this, and then we've got KLYC that is doing a direct streaming this evening. Not that it is a part of that, but recognizing if you put your telephones on silent and to keep from interfering with the proceedings of tonight, we would ask you to do that. We're going to start this evening with our Pledge of Allegiance, and we've asked Councillor Menke to lead us in that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kelly. We're to that point this evening where we have an invitation to citizens for public comment. And so anyone may come before the council and talk on subjects other than a topic that's already on the agenda, a matter in litigation, quasi-judicial land matters, or a matter that's scheduled for public hearing at some future date. And I may limit those conversations depending how many we have. So do we have anyone that would like to approach the council tonight? Okay, go ahead, sir. If you'd introduce yourself and sign yourself in.
Hello, my name's Mark Ritchie. I'm from McMinnville. I'm also called Duck in the Camouflage Night.
Camouflage night. Duck. Sounder. Have a seat and go ahead and address the council.
The first matter that I have here was last year we were in here to see about a fortified alcohol ban on 3rd Street. We gave geographical areas of where we wanted the alcohol banned and sold, and you didn't listen to the voice of the people. Now, instead of a geographic area we're going to lay out, I'm going to tell you the businesses that the fortified alcohol needs to be removed from. The first business is Circle K on 3rd Street. The second business is Center Market, and that's right there on Baker behind us. And the other third store is the Red Apple Market on Lafayette. Now, to pull the fortified alcohols from those stores would eliminate the drunkenness on the 3rd Street area. Problem solved. Issue number 2 is demolition permits. We need to move like Portland did. No more demolition. What we need is deconstruction permits. If you're going to run the demo permits, they should be higher priced. Now, in a deconstruction permit, that stuff does not land up in our landfill. And the thing is, we want about 40% of all the materials to be recycled to supply jobs on the construction site. If they want to choose to demo it and throw it in the dump, charge them for it. Now, the third issue I have online is under section USC, number 8. Any U.S. citizen that knowingly assists an illegal alien, provides them with employment, food, water, or shelter has committed a felony. City, county, or state officials that declare their jurisdictions to be open cities, counties, or states are subject to arrest, as are law enforcement agencies who choose not to enforce this law. Now, police officers who ignore officials who violate Section 8 USC are committing a Section 274 federal felony. Now, furthermore, according to Federal Immigration and National Act of 1952, if you live in a city, county, or state that refuses to enforce the law for whatever reason, the officials making these rules are financially liable and any crime committed within their jurisdiction of an illegal alien. Now, I want to reference this as the year, a year or two ago, that Parker Moore was stabbed in the 7-Eleven parking lot by an illegal alien. Now, if you want to get sued by their family, I would suggest to read this Section 8 USC. because that will cover you of liability and the other family who had that member stabbed to sue you. But those illegal aliens have no rights under no citizenship. Amen.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the council tonight? Go ahead. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. You come down my street and you put the sewers in, and we cooperated with all we could do to make it good for the city and for the contractors. When you guys finished that job, the rains came, and we had 3 months to get the job done. There's not a contractor that would do it. And so now they take away the $250 incentive they gave us, and now they're charging us $50 a month. This is the most, why don't the city cooperate with the people?
Bill,
You know what? All the people on my street are in the same boat as I am. Why don't you just do it and straighten things out instead of just let them fester?
So I'd ask you to sign in, and then, Mike, do you have any comments? Usually we don't have a dialogue, but would you have any comments?
Not at this time, unless there are questions from the council regarding the sewer lateral program.
We talked about this at the dinner meeting for a few minutes this evening, council. Any questions of Mike or of Bill?
I have a quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
He raises a point that I wasn't aware of during the dinner meeting, but that the timing of this led into a rainy season. Probably wasn't the best time for doing the work. If that's, is there a way we can meet him halfway if that's an area of contention in order to extend out the fee or something like that, because of the construction window just really wasn't favorable?
I wanted to get the job done, and the job would have been done now, except 3 contractors. I got 3 quotes, but they can't do it till the property dries out.
Yeah.
The guy next door to me, it cost him $12,000, and they had equipment stuck all over his place.
Any other comments?
I got one. When did the clock start ticking on your, when did you get the notice that you needed
The
to
3
replace
months has passed that I had when I would have got the $250.
It was December 30th.
And now they're talking about the $50 a month that they fine you every month.
it? And you're aware that if you
Yes.
do that in 10 months, you don't pay?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they should just extend it. I mean, people want to do it. Why don't the city cooperate with them and help them get it done? Where's the $250 going if they don't give it to the people that put in the sewer lines? Where does that money go? Whose pocket does it go in, for one thing? I don't know. Where does it go? Can you answer that?
I cannot. I was just briefed on it this evening.
Any other comments?
That we talked a little bit about, really, it's a 13-month period of time to get.
Yeah, but the 3 months, if you get it done in 3 months, you got a $250 incentive. Well, instead of extending our time, they just took the $250 and started the fines going at $50 a month, which I think is ridiculous, and I don't think you're cooperating. I pay my taxes here. I live here. I obey the law. I live a clean life. When I go to the mayor, he yells at me for crying out loud.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments this evening, if you could?
Hi, my name is Sheila Alson, and I am a geologist and a professor of geology. I have been giving talks. Was the keynote speaker at the preparedness fair that you had last week. I've given these talks all over the state on the earthquake risk that we have here in Oregon, which is very significant. We only started learning about it in the 1980s, and it's become, through scientific evidence, it's become apparent that it is not, that it is a certainty, that it's not just if it happens, it's when it will happen. And we have a risk of a large subduction earthquake greater than anything we have ever witnessed in this country, more like what happened in Japan. In fact, exactly what happened in Japan. The only difference is the United States isn't nearly as prepared as Japan is for that size earthquake. Okay, it is, here's the historical record going back 10,000 years, puts us in a position, we know how often that they've happened, and they have happened on the order of every 300 to 500 years for the last 10,000 years, which is as far back as we go. They happen every 300 to 500 years. The last one happened in the year 1700. So 317 years ago, we're right on the edge of having this. So I was disturbed to hear that the council was deciding to get rid of the position of emergency management for the city. And I am a resident of this city, and I have family here, and I deeply care about this Yamhill County and McMinnville especially. I really think that it is short-sighted to get rid of that position or reassign it in any way, because I saw the work that was being done by the person in that position, and that person is doing a service to the city. This is something that we cannot ignore, and this is a certainty, a scientific certainty, and it's very short-sighted to get rid of that position. We need to be preparing more, not less. We're woefully unprepared in Oregon.
Thank you, Sheila. If you could sign in, and just so we have your name and address for the record, I had an opportunity to hear your opening comments at that preparedness fair, and you really are an expert in some of those areas. So I appreciate the work that you're doing and communicating some of the risks that are out there. As a city and as a council, we are looking at enhancing our preparedness, and more to come in a very short while as we're putting our budget together on that. So I'll tell you, I'm one that's going to make sure that we're going to have a coverage and working with the county in a meaningful way moving forward.
And if there's anything I can do to help, I don't charge for this. I just do it because I really want people to be prepared. You're only as prepared as the least prepared person in your neighborhood, and we can all work together, and we can prepare for this so we can recover from this.
Absolutely. Thank you for your testimony. Go ahead.
Do you want my address here?
Yeah, just your name and address, so for the record.
Okay.
The position that was eliminated or set aside, I know he was a part-time basis on that.
Right.
What's the background of that? Is that something that's been eliminated completely, that position, or are we going to try and fill it?
So this past year was the first year we had a dedicated part-time position for emergency management. In the past, we've handled emergency management through more of a committee approach. We'll continue to do that in the future. What we're really looking at is a way to make sure we provide a comprehensive service for fire inspection, prevention, and emergency management. And we really need a higher level of certification on our staff than we currently have.
Yeah, and he was providing that opportunity to be certified through the CERT training.
Yes.
And is that no longer available for the time being?
They'll continue to be CERT training. In fact, the county has indicated a willingness to step up and manage that program for the whole region.
Okay.
Any other questions? Sheila, thank you.
You're welcome. And if you'll excuse me, I'm playing hooky from a class tonight to come here. So
We understand.
Okay, thank you.
Did that only?
Do we have anyone else that would like to address the council this evening?
did, but she took my...
Well, we'll recognize that. I mean, you could share a moment, and if you'd like, or
don't want to repeat.
Ma'am,
but-
excuse me, you left your purse up front here? Oh.
Thank you.
Again, state your name
Hello.
and sign in for the
Yes,
record.
my name is Michael Wells. I live at 118 Northeast 9th Street, and I was going to talk to you about the earthquake. I'm not exactly. Oh, she filled out everything. Okay. I'm just a guy. I don't know that much about earthquakes. I don't know. This is why I had to write everything down.
Again, Michael, if you just want to share briefly your concern, we'll hear that, and you've heard that we're going to address it in a different way, in hopefully a more meaningful way for our citizens within the.
Okay, thank you. My concerns were more about after the earthquake. I'm pretty certain that I will survive an earthquake. I have a table that I can hide under and some emergency rations. However, a large portion of our economy comes from tourism. We have a downtown that routinely ranks as one of the best downtowns in America, and we're at the heart of wine country. People will travel from all over the Pacific Northwest in order to vacation here. Our historic small town feel and our bevy of wine tasting rooms makes for a wonderful time. Look, for anybody looking to get away from it all and enjoy themselves. But imagine you set money aside for a vacation rental. Set plans, put down the deposit, drove the whole way, looking forward to a lovely vacation, only to find out there was no Wi-Fi, or electricity, or even running water. The quaint little downtown that you were so looking forward to visiting is no longer there. Would you still want to vacation there? My guess would be no for a lot of people. As you have already heard from tonight, we are at the precipice of a natural disaster the likes of which Oregon has never seen before. And the thought of our buildings falling, our bridges failing, and our electricity and water disappearing is something the human brain was not meant to process. I have to admit, I can't even fathom the magnitude. When I was in high school, there was an earthquake that seemed like more of a minor inconvenience than anything. I thought that somebody was just annoyingly shaking the table that I was sitting at. Oregon has not faced a natural disaster like California and Japan almost routinely do. And a failing of the human brain, myself included, is that if it hasn't happened to us personally, part of us believes that it doesn't exist. And as absurd as that sounds, there are plenty of people believed in history that a disaster would never happen to them, and they met with a terrifying fate. I may feel that this earthquake will never happen, but I'm also smart enough to know, to listen to people far more knowledgeable than me, such as Sheila. The future of McMinnville depends on how long it takes to recover from this impending disaster. How long will it take for our town to get back to normal? We can survive the earthquake, but that's not everything. How much money is McMinnville going to lose in the period of time after the earthquake? How many vacations will be redirected elsewhere because there's no running water or even electricity? How many residents will just straight up move away because there's no hospital? The ultimate question becomes, will McMinnville ever recover because we weren't prepared? There is hope. Downtown buildings can be reinforced. Our bridges can be updated so they can be used after the event. People can be taught what to do in an emergency. Our sewer and power lines can be reinforced. We can survive the aftermath, but only if we start now. What I would like is to start with reinforcing the bridges so that transportation and relief supplies can come in as soon as possible. And at the same time, make sure our water and sewer lines are protected from rupturing so we can have clean water in the ensuing year and a half that is estimated that it will take to repair. Our healthcare buildings should be prepared, and extra fuel for police, firefighters, and ambulances should be stockpiled locally. This will no doubt cost the city a lot of money, but I am absolutely certain that the cost will be a pittance compared to the expenses we will incur if we do not take these actions in time, money, and our lives. How quickly we bounce back depends on what we do now. Do we want to be known as the last residents of McMinnville, or those who ensured its future prosperity? Thank you.
Any questions for Michael? Thank you. We have two proclamations this evening that we'd like to present. And so, Chief Matt, would you come up with, we've got a few uniformed officers back there. We've got, yeah, we do. And if you'd like to introduce our officers.
Robert Harmon's here. Eric Newhouse and Chris Powell. Captain Simons is in the back, along with Captain Sandoval.
Well, it's with pleasure we have this opportunity to recognize National Police Week. We are so pleased and proud of the work that you do on behalf of the city. So with that, whereas the Congress and the President of the United States has designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls, a National Police Week, and whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of McMinnville play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and the freedoms of McMinnville, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of law enforcement agency of McMinnville unceasingly provides the vital public service, now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of McMinnville, Oregon, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th, through May 21st, 2017 as National Police Week, and call upon all citizens of McMinnville and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 15th through the 21st of 2017 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating how law enforcement officers, past and present, who by faithful and loyal dedication to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in doing so have established for themselves an invaluable and endurable reputation of preserving the rights and the security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of McMinnville to observe the 15th of May 2017 as Peace Officer Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community, or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. In witness thereof, I have herefore set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 9th day of May, 2017. Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the city of McMinnville. Chief?
Thank you.
Any words?
I think it's well known that I think our city's probably got one of the best law enforcement officers, groups of individuals that do a very difficult job, and we really appreciate this honor today, and the work that the officers and the detectives and support staff all do is critical to making MAC what it is. So thank you for having us.
And if you just take the message back to your coworkers, I know you're able to be here. You're going to have to leave because we need you out on the streets tonight. But share that within the total group of how resoundingly we just send our message of thanks and support. Thank you. Well, we have another group this evening, the Public Works group, and I would ask that anyone that's associated with Public Works to come up front. Mike said he's not going to come up. He wants all of you, and I see many of you, so come on up. Yeah, David, you've got to come up. We have a proclamation to this fine group, and this is not all of our public works by all means, but the ones that could make it out tonight. And so we have a proclamation of National Public Week's work, which is May 21st through the 27th of 2017. Whereas 2017 marks the 57th annual National Public Works Week, and this year's theme is Public Works Connects Us, and whereas Public Works as a cornerstone of civilization plays a vital role in connecting us all together, and whereas Public Works provides, maintains, and improves the structures and services that assure a higher quality of life for our community, and whereas our streets, roads, bridges, and public transportation keeps us linked together, and our clean water and sanitation services keeps us healthy and allows our community to grow and to prosper. Whereas the employees of McMinnville Water and Light and of the city's engineering, building, public works, and wastewater departments works tirelessly every day to strengthen the bond that keeps us all connected. And whereas it is in the public interest of McMinnville citizens, business owners, civic leaders, and youth to gain an understanding of the importance of public works and the public works program in their daily lives. Now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, Oregon, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through the 27th as National Public Works Week in the city of McMinnville, and call upon all the citizens, business leaders, civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing, maintaining our public works infrastructure, and to recognize the contributions that our public work employees make every day to our health and welfare. In witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 9th day of May, 2017. Signed, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville. Thank you. Now, what we're going to do now is just have each of you introduce yourself and what department, how long you've been with the city.
Sean Garrison, Street Department, Public Works, about 15 years.
Matt Bernards, I've been with the city for 8 years, and I'm in collections wastewater side.
Liz Lazar, and I'm with the Parks Department, and I've been here 9 years.
Mike Runge with the Wastewater Services, 4 years.
Leland Kester, Wastewater Services. I've been here 19 and a half years.
Jason Height, Wastewater Services. Been with the city 3 years.
Jeff Swale, Wastewater Services, and I've been about 6 years.
Tim Monroe, Wastewater Services. I'm in my 29th year.
David Renshaw, Public Works, 11 and a half years.
Dave Gehring, McMinnville Wastewater Services, 26 years.
Thank you, everyone. Mike, I'll give the proclamation to you and would ask just for a couple of words from you, and then also take back to the group. We're going to have an opportunity to have a barbecue on the 18th, and many of the counselors and I will be a part of that. We won't miss that opportunity for a barbecue. So, Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and certainly appreciate staff joining us this evening. It's sort of one of the favorite things that we get to do throughout the year is to recognize our staff for the services that they provide, pretty much mostly behind the scenes, quietly. If you need us, it's probably because something isn't working, and so we work hard to make sure that that's not the case. And so I appreciate staff being here this evening. Mayor, you did mention we'll have an employee recognition barbecue. That'll be Wednesday the 24th at McMinnville Water and Light. Once again, Water and Light will be joining us for that celebration. They'll also be joining us for our Touch a Truck events that'll happen that week. We'll be at 3 elementary schools this year, reaching out to kindergarten classes and sharing with those students a little bit about what Public Works is about and what we do for the community. So thanks again for the recognition, and hope to see you all at the barbecue.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Public Works. Councilors, that takes us to our consent agenda this evening, and we have 2 items on the consent agenda. A renewal request from this Center Market 17 for a liquor license at 509 Northeast Baker Street, and a request from Izzy's Restaurants for a liquor license at 1290 North Highway 99. Is there any councilor that would like to have anything taken off, any of the items taken off the consent agenda? Hearing none, then do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
It has been moved by Council President Menke and seconded by Councilor Garvin. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. The consent agenda has been passed unanimously. This evening we have new business. We have a request from Jessica Rex on behalf of Memorial Elementary School PTA for a noise variance waiver for an event to be held on May 12th. And so if Ms. Rex is here, if she could come up. Welcome.
Thank you. And this is Sarah Hansen. She is also on the PTA board with me.
Good. If you go ahead and share with the council your requests this evening.
Okay, so we are getting ready to do our annual spring fling. It's one of our larger fundraisers for the year. And this year we are going to be having some outdoor performances. The Linfield Luau Club is going to be coming. The high school's ballet folklorial will be coming, and then we also have a singer and guitarist that will be coming to perform live music from about 5 to 8. If it rains, then we'll have it inside, but if it doesn't, it will be on the Memorial Elementary School playground.
Any questions for Sarah or Jessica? Do we know what the time of the variance that the hours that you're asking for the variance?
It's going to be from 5 to 7:45.
Okay, from 5 to 7:45?
Mm-hmm.
No other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll take this request up. I asked for a motion to direct the city manager to approve the request for a waiver from the city's noise ordinance from Jessica Rex for May the 12th.
So moved.
Okay, So it has been moved by Councillor Jeffries and seconded by Councillor Rudin. All in favor may signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay? This motion has passed unanimously, and so we'll get, I think, more information to them, or are we all squared away?
We'll get them.
There will be a letter from the city manager.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so
guys.
much.
Tonight we have two presentations to come before the council. First, we've got Jody Christenson from Economic Development Partnership, and I think we do this maybe 3 times a year, or at least twice a year. So, Jody and Macy, thank you for coming, and we turn the time over to you.
Thank you. Okay, we're getting instructions here. It's very fancy. Okay. So I want to thank you for inviting us to visit with you today. I hope most of you know Lacey. She's our marketing specialist. So everything that you see that has our logo on it, or anything that you read that's about our community, that's the work of Lacey. She also is integral in a full reboot on our website that we'll be launching in about 3 weeks. And so you'll see lots of new content there. All right, so yeah, there we go. So as Mayor Hill mentioned, we come before you. This is an opportunity for us to talk about what we've been working on in our office and what you're going to be expecting from us. You may know that we structure our work around 3 pillars. It's McMinnville Made, McMinnville Sites, and McMinnville Works. And under those pillars, we direct our activities. So we're talking about the people who make things in our community, the sites and properties that are available, and then the people who work here and how we support workforce development.
So we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the projects and events that you may have seen us kind of put on around town. So first off, we had the Urban Renewal Tour, and that was in March, and that was a 2-part event, and the first part was an organized talk with our planning director, Heather Richards, as well as Walt from the Murac group, and it was an opportunity for a lot of community members, including businesses, investors, architects, constructors, and city organizations to come together to kind of learn more about the urban renewal program and the grants that are available, as well as a lot of the opportunities there. We also, the second part was a tour of one of our premier sites, which is the Hubbard Shoe Grease building, and we were able to tour that with Mike Morris, who was able to tell us kind of the history of the area, as well as we were able to walk along Alpine Avenue, which was really great because it was showing a lot of people kind of the opportunities that were available there. Our 2017 Next series is currently called Next Strategic Solutions for Advanced Manufacturing, and this was really built after listening to a lot of our manufacturers, their needs and their kind of concerns as they were going forward for the future. And so that has 28 registered guests, and that's local manufacturers as well as some from the regions. And we've brought in accredited speakers, Gary Connor from OMEP and Sean Busey from Kinesis Marketing, Inc. in Portland, to kind of speak on that. And then our McMinnville Works internship program, you've seen this. This is where we bring interns into the community. This is our 5th year that we're going into. It's continued to have healthy growth, and our interns are being hired around town. You may recognize a few from this photo, including myself. And finally, our McMinnville Made student tours, and this was a continuation of our McMinnville Made Day that we had in October, and we've already completed 2 tours, and those are with students who have shown a real interest in technology. So that's our ESA students, and as well as some robotics clubs who are from middle schools, and it's really just to show kind of what's in the community, because a lot of people don't know about the manufacturers here.
So a lot of what we do, you can see in our newsletter, on our website, and the postings that Lacey does on social media. But quite a bit of the work that we do, you don't ever get to see. We spend a considerable amount of time going out and visiting with our companies to learn what they do, how they do it, and where their pain points are. Our favorite question to ask our companies, what keeps you up at night? Because in that, we can find out where their problems are and their commonalities, and we can generate programs and resources to help our companies. We also are part of recruitment teams. We're on Team Oregon Advanced Manufacturing, Team Oregon Food Processing, and we're also part of a regional pilot that's directing a considerable amount of investment in lead generation, companies looking to move to Oregon, and we're positioning McMinnville to be a part of those conversations. We continue to work with partners around the region and in the state to make sure that we know what the best resources are. And I often say our responsibility is to understand a lot, a mile wide, but an inch deep, which means that we have to ask 3 or 4 questions to understand what they need, and then we get them to the experts. So that takes time and energy for us to make sure that we're getting useful and valuable resources. You may have seen this, and I hope you're talking a lot about it. We have made an aspirational goal, and we know that many of you are on board with us. We're looking at fostering creation of 1,500 family wage jobs in 15 years. There's a lot of numbers there, but I will say that this is part of our history. We're not afraid to take on big and lofty aspirational goals. It's deeply rooted in the history of McMinnville Industrial Promotions when they made a commitment and investment to bring 9 new industries to McMinnville in their campaign 9 in '69. So we took a page from their book, and we, as a board, discussed what was possible. And in 15 years, our city will celebrate its 150th anniversary. So we believe if we can stand at that moment, at that time, and say that we made a commitment 15 years ago and look at the results, that will be a pretty outstanding moment for all of us. So what does a family wage job mean? We're going to talk a little bit about that. And what are the types of industries that we're going to be focused on, and what kind of innovation are we going to be focused on? We'll talk a little bit about that. But what's really important are some of the other numbers. To achieve 1,500 family wage jobs in 15 years, and we're primarily talking about advanced manufacturing and technology, we have to average 11 jobs per industrial acre. And that's aggressive. And when I've told other economic development people around the state that that's what we're planning to do, they go, that's a big number, but McMinnville usually achieves what they go out for. So we believe it's possible. We've also worked with Heather Richards and making sure that we're gut checking this number. We don't want it to be out of range. So if you look at the forecast for job growth for McMinnville over the next 20 years, it's a 1.7% growth. That would mean that we would be achieving about 1,500 industrial jobs. So it's possible. But it's not any job, it's a family wage job. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that.
So we define advanced manufacturing as a business that utilizes and promotes emerging technologies and implements those innovations into their process. When we say advanced manufacturing, it often requires a higher skill level by the workers, and that often leads to a higher pay grade. What family wage job means is that someone can live comfortably on it, can live a comfortable life and meet their necessities as well as have some entertainment. So what we also define as advanced manufacturing is a company that brings new money into the city. So this means that they're creating a product or service that is being consumed elsewhere outside of the city, and therefore new money is coming in. Along with this, the definition of advanced manufacturing is changing, and it needs to change. So the traditional definition is a business means that it comes from a single country of origin and that there must be a physical transformation which creates economic benefits. So with the emergence of technology and everything with that, the definition needs to change. So we're including things like software, research, and design as all part of this new manufacturing process, especially jobs where they may not be as hands-on and may not be producing a physical product, but a company like TTR, who is on the screen right now, they were our manufacturing leaders of the year this year, and they create a software for tax research and law. And so though they're not producing a physical product, it's actually being consumed online. We consider them manufacturers as well. We are also considering traditional manufacturers in our definition of advanced manufacturing. So companies like Cascade Steel, Solid Form Fabrication, and Make It Polymers and Composites, they're using innovation to create more efficiency in their companies, as well as streamline processes. So any company that's really embracing technology in an innovative way, we're looking at them to kind of increase their family wage jobs. We're also including biotech companies such as AP Tech and Precision Analytical, as well as companies who are using technology to create new products in interesting ways, such as Northwest UAV, who designs drones, and Northwest Rapid Manufacturing, who uses selective laser sintering to 3D print products. So by doing all this, we're ensuring that we have a variety of industries and businesses in McMinnville to combat the ebb and flow in business. So whenever business rise or falls, we have a variety of businesses to kind of catch McMinnville's economy.
It's all about strengthening our portfolio. And we want to make sure that we have enough diversity in the types of companies and the sectors that we have. So as Lacey said, the ebb and flow, it's a natural part of business. It's a natural part of the economy that you have ups and downs. So you want to strengthen McMinnville's chances to weather the storm differently by diversifying our portfolio. So one way we're going to do that is we're going to be strategically targeted on tech. And we've announced recently that we're going after tech. We're using the companies that we have here in town to help us understand where there might be supply chain opportunities. We're calling it Tech2R, growing tech in Oregon wine country. We've started building relationships with the Technology Association of Oregon, and they're extremely excited about the opportunity to partner with us on this particular campaign. There's a great amount of synergy with the types of projects and programs that they provide, and we think that we can really leverage what we have here with that organization. So we're very excited about that. This is going to be a 2 to 3 year campaign, so we're calling it a soft launch right now. We're doing a lot of data and research collection. We're learning from our companies what we really need to be, what we need to understand, where the challenges are, and how we're competitively advantaged in McMinnville. And I'll tell you this, what we have when we talk about quality of life plays really well in the world of technology, because they can be anywhere. They can be anywhere in the world to produce their product, because it's often cloud-based or based in technology that's on the web or on the fiber. So what they're looking for is a place that offers them a certain kind of lifestyle, a place to grow their families, a place where they can be connected. They often have a very millennial approach to the world, so they're looking for a place where they can be engaged in community work. They can be involved in government. They can be involved in systematic change. So McMinnville has so much to offer in that industry, in that category, what those companies are looking for, and we've heard that over and over again. TTR could have been anywhere in the world, and they decided to stay here and grow their company. They're going from 60 to 120 employees. That's a fantastic testament to that. When they asked their employees, would you leave? 65% said they're staying. That's fantastic. We have a company called Predicta. We've talked about it before. You've seen it in our newsletter. They're based in San Francisco. The most expensive place in the United States to work is San Francisco. It's hard to live on $110,000 in San Francisco. So what did they do? They're moving their client management team here, and they're growing them. 40 people will be managing all of their client and growth for their company out of McMinnville. And the singular reason, they can offer a life to their employees that great food, great wine, great schools, great parks, great city. And we're going to play on that. And we're going to ask those companies to help make sure that we get introduced to many more companies, because we know that we have a growth opportunity there. You can tell I'm really excited about that. That is going to be an all hands on deck. So some of the things that we want you to look forward to over the next few months. McMinnville Economic Development Partnership received a grant from the Oregon Talent Council to deliver 4 workshops on how we grew our own community internship program. So we've received a grant to do that. It's helping secure resources for McMinnville, for our office, so that we can do other things, but it's also helping us make stronger connections around the state. We'll be finishing up the next series that Lacey mentioned earlier, and then we'll be launching a second next event in the fall around access to capital. We're in preliminary discussions right now about bringing in a site selector to come into our community in the fall to tour our sites and meet people to find out what it's like to do business here. We have 4 more student industry tours on deck, and the mayor will be attending a couple of those. Again, I mentioned that we have a relationship growing with TAO, the Technology Association of Oregon. That's the first of many that you'll be seeing. We want you to hold the date for October 3rd. That's our annual event. We're excited to do that again. We will be launching our 5th year of the intern program. We have 16 interns at 13 companies. We have 5 new companies participating this year, and 2 have never had interns before. So we're very proud of that. Our office is also working on 2 very large grants for our companies. I can't talk too much about that. I'm hoping we can make an announcement in the next couple of months. But that's to help shore up and help them achieve growth at a faster pace if we can get those grants to them. So things to keep in mind. You often ask how you can help. I do have a call to action for you. We're going to need you to help us reach that 1,500 in 15 years. And you are singularly responsible for the things that are going to make an impact on that 11 jobs per acre. So that's going to be about permitting and zoning and ordinances. And we ask that you keep a mindful eye, as you always do, when you make decisions about development, particularly on industrial property and land use, that you think and believe that we can achieve that 1,500, and that you watch those particular aspects of your duties and make sure that we're not stopping that process, that we're continuing to move that forward. At this time, I'd like to ask if there are any questions.
Thank you. To my right, any questions for Lacey or for Jody? To my left? Thank you for the report. You know, I feel like I'm connected at the hip with this group. I mean, I get so excited when I'm out, and Jeff and I have had an opportunity to go out and talk to a number of the large corporate entities in our community. We know the heritage and that legacy that we have here, and to continue, it's going to take work, and it's going to take vision, and it's going to take a partnership. And that's who and what you're all made out of, is a partnership. And so I'm very thankful to be a part of that, whether it be a 4-legged stool or a 3-legged stool, whatever it is. We feel like we are really here, and just say thank you, keep up the good work, continue to communicate with us, and we'll work together to accomplish 1,500 in 15 years.
There you go.
Thank you.
That's the hashtag. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. We have another presentation this evening on the McMinnville Airshow proposal. And so, Bill Brack, if you're here, if you'd come up and address the council. Bill, it's good to see you again. I know you had the opportunity last Tuesday night, if I'm not mistaken, to meet with our airport commission. And so you have a presentation for us, and I think that will be brought up. And so go ahead.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time and enjoy being here. I trust that you've seen our proposal, and primarily I'm here to answer questions. But briefly, I appreciate having Jody go before me. As you heard her mention, this community has a lot to offer, and an air show is a great way to demonstrate what your community has. The city of Hillsborough, about 3 years ago, conducted a survey to ask many people why they came to the city of Hillsborough. The number one reason in that survey was the air show. And because of that reason,
we have always had a great relationship with the city, but we continue to have a great relationship because it is a driver for the community there to demonstrate similar qualities of what that community has to offer folks and why they might want to come to their community. As for the event and as for our organization, we're a 501c3 nonprofit Oregon-based charity that raises our funds through an aviation event called an airshow. And ultimately, we exist to raise money for Oregon charities. And we have a committee that works with us that selects our grant recipients, our scholarship recipients, and those recipients are not just restricted to Hillsborough or Washington County. They're represented all over this region and into Southwest Washington as well. And if we are lucky enough to come to McMinnville and have an air show here, we look forward to working with community partners and community charities to continue our efforts very, very aggressively here for your community. And the event, our planning schedule would be to conduct an air show in 2018 if we're approved, and to what we would call a somewhat of a limited air show, just to be able to work with your community and your EMS and law enforcement departments to validate what we think is the right number of folks that could descend upon the airport and keep everybody safe, and begin the work also to plan for 2019 and beyond, where we would start to court our U.S. and Canadian jet demonstration teams, which would also bring additional folks if the facility would accommodate. The history of our organization, we've been around for, this is our 30th event. Over the 30 years, 15 of those years we were part of the Rose Festival. For those of you that have been to the event, you may remember that it was called the Rose Festival Air Show. And when the Chamber of Commerce and the Rose Festival Committee opted to part ways, the Oregon International Organization was formed, largely with the same folks that have been running the air show locally, but and that entity continues today. We've put back a little over $2 million since 2003, when Oregon International was formed, into area charities, and that work continues as well. A few questions that have come up that were very appropriate questions through this process is would this be a Hillsborough 2.0? And it's definitely not our intention. We would want to work with and look forward to work with the community here to brand and build an image around the event that reflects this community, what it has to offer the folks that would come into the community to the event, and capitalize on those strengths as well. I think I could go on forever, but any questions for me?
So let's go ahead and open it up for any questions for Bill. I know we have quite a few, so.
Well, I went to your air show last year as a guest of you folks, and it was a wonderful event. I really enjoyed myself. And as I listened to you speak, it was very clear that emergency services were probably the biggest thing that the city would provide. Obviously, you know, we're a town of 33,000, and we don't have the resources, anything close to what Hillsborough and some of the larger communities around which they draw from. I'm very interested in understanding how you would propose to assist us in this matter, because obviously we're going to need some assistance. We're obviously, as a city, looking at it very carefully, but just curious to know if you might have some suggestions that you might be able to augment this.
Well, I think it's a great question. First off is scalability. The event that you went to, we host 30,000 people, a little in excess of 30,000 people a day. We're looking at half of that, or a little under half of that, to keep the scale appropriate. The other piece, we have made the introduction of various entities to do some research. City manager to city manager, for example, police department to police department, and so forth. We anticipate hosting some of your leaders at our event this year to just see what and how they approach the air show, and so that it could be scaled accordingly here. That part, I'm not a law enforcement officer, so I can't give them their guidance, but other than open what our law enforcement folks do there, and they certainly partner with numerous agencies. Some of the agencies do come from outside of the city. Some of our federal folks obviously come from outside of the area to assist, and our folks at the City of Hillsborough Police Department can address that directly with your police folks. From a crash fire rescue perspective, likewise, we partner with a couple resources, one of which is the Oregon Air National Guard, and they bring a resource from PDX, for example, because they typically have numerous assets on the field. They represent that military support piece for us. So there would be connections like that we would anticipate that we would do here as well, in accordance with your chief of each department, of course.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that information.
Okay.
There's also a couple other things that cross my mind, availability of lodging and parking. That was huge, as I recall. I mean, you've been through the town. Do you feel like somehow the resources could be made available that will make all this work?
Well, I think to best answer that question, the first air show, our intention is to keep it as humble as possible, so that we can validate our assumptions. We know that an average car holds 3.4, 3.5 people that come to an air show, so we know that we're going to need several thousand parking stalls. We have hotels. I'm confident we will fill them all for the weekend. And a big hunk of those will be filled by us for our performers and our guests that we bring in to work the event. And then the rest, obviously, for those that come in and attend. We've looked at RV parks that you have in the area to maximize that as well. So we still have some questions like that to answer, but that's definitely part of our economic impact that we hope to make, is to fill up all those rooms and restaurants and so forth.
What kind of draw do you anticipate in the first year in 2018?
I know we've talked just anecdotally. When we get down to actually doing the numbers with your staff and confirming exactly how many square feet do I have to park, if we can get to 15,000 for each day, that's our initial goal and target. And I would love to see us, if that's the number, then I'd love to see us bring that many folks in. We will be targeting a segment that have RV groups that come in and like to come in and explore wineries and things of that nature. That's a smaller total number, but it's still an element that we look forward to bringing in as well. And then once we've gone through one year, if we handled that well, we didn't have any significant breaking points, then we would look to see what is the next level. Can we go to 20,000 a day, or maybe not? We won't know that until we've done the formal review, and then obviously had the first show.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. At least for you've answered most of the questions I had.
Well, I appreciate your questions.
Thank you again for the wonderful time I had last year. I'm sure the city officials will enjoy it this coming year.
Good.
Any further questions from the council?
Yeah, I have.
Wendy?
Thank you for coming and giving us a presentation. We're obviously really looking at the opportunity, and we just want to make sure that we can handle it. One of the questions I had was, I know you already mentioned the lodging, but can you tell us a little bit about what you found the other benefits to the community are in Hillsborough, and how you try to enhance? In your executive summary, you talked about how you would, my computer turned off just when I needed it, how you would utilize it to encourage people to explore the wine country and other things like that. How do you get, how many of the people who would be coming to this would also then explore out into the community, and how do you encourage that?
I think some of that will be with our partnership with that sector of the area. So we don't necessarily have a wine country in Hillsborough where you all do here. In fact, our wine partner for our event comes from your community. And for us to be able to have fun with that, one of these shows that we've looked at to mimic, if you will, is one in a wine country a little further south from here in Santa Rosa, California. They have had a wonderful event, Wings and Wine, and they call it the Wings Over Wine Country. Wonderful partnership that they do, and each year they rotate some of the wineries that they partner with. How we do it here is yet to be determined, whether it's a conglomeration and we have a host of the wineries represented on the field, and the guests get to learn about all of them, or whether we have an opportunity to move people throughout the wineries. All of those are on our whiteboard right now. Until we put things in the right order, get through this meeting and the next couple steps, formal steps that says, yes, we're going to have an event, then we'll have those discussions to see what is the best fit and how can we do it responsibly. Obviously, wine and piloting an airplane don't go so well together, so we want to make sure that if they fly in here and they go to a winery, they're not getting back in a cockpit and going elsewhere. So we have a lot of logistic questions like that to answer, but we hope to be able to move folks from the airfield also out to wineries that want to participate with us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Alan? Bill, thank you for your presentation, and also your a little bit more expanded presentation at the Airport Commission. Appreciate that. We gathered a lot of facts there. One of the discussions we had about the July 1st deadline day of having a signed and deal with the city. What are your thoughts on that? Is that workable, and can it be expanded out a little bit?
So what that deadline is, the U.S. jet teams are on a 2-year rolling calendar now. And so for us to submit our paperwork to the Pentagon, it is due July 1st. And that July 1st deadline is for the 2019 airshow cycle. 2018 has already been defined for the jet teams, and it's not our goal to have them in 18 anyway. We will be seeking the single ship demonstrations, which those are due this July. So that's the importance of that deadline. And it's a simple form. It's a matter of the owner of the facility, the city manager signs acknowledging that, yes, they know that we're proposing an aviation event. The FAA signs off on it, I sign off on it, and it's sent over to the Pentagon.
Just one more. That's a drop dead date, if you want to call it that, to get the blue
for that paperwork. Yes, sir.
For 2019.
Yes.
And so is there a deadline for what would happen in the first year of this air show in 2018?
So 2018 has the same deadline for the single ship paperwork. So the single ship, like an A-10 demo, the F-18 from the Navy demo, the F-35, the F-22, all of those military demos that are just one aircraft. With the exception of the Marine Corps, they bring 3 Ospreys if you're selected. Those dates for 2018, same date, July 1.
Yeah, I know in the Airport Commission, which I sit on, we were very excited about the presentation. And then we started getting a lot of questions. how do we get all this done by July 1st? And how do we make it equitable for both parties? If it's beneficial for McMinnville, beneficial for you and the charities, how do we put it together in such a short timeline when there's a lot of issues to be discussed? So that's a concern.
It definitely is for us. If it doesn't occur by the deadline, then it definitely puts the can down the road a bit, and it doesn't mean that we're disinterested. It just means we want to continue to proceed. So while we work through those details, the technical part of a contract, absent significant barriers, the paperwork can be submitted prior to a contract. It just, my preference is it's putting the cart a little before the horse. And if it all can get everything done by in June timeframe, that gives us plenty of time to process the 2535. That part is fairly simple. It's just a matter of signatures, running around, getting them, and then faxing it to the Pentagon.
Yeah, I know one of the, and Kelly Menke brought it up, just some of our concerns about support services that we're required to assist with the air show puts a strain and a stress on our community, and so that gives us pause, and that's a main sticking point at this point of finding the funding, but also the manpower to put it up. Do you have any suggestions on that?
Well, I think I don't know your manpower and what your staffing models look like, so I can't speak to that. But I do know that as an airshow performer, I go to communities substantially smaller than this, and they're all scalable. So 2 weeks ago, I was in Vidalia, Georgia, population like I think 12,000 people, and their posture was accordingly. Now they still had the minimum crash fire rescue. That part is not waiverable. There are some private contractors for assisting the fire department at aviation events. We certainly can look at having them as our what we call a quick attack team. They're there to, if there were ever an issue, they go in and are there to take care of the initial issue, whatever the issue is, while the fire department comes in and assists them. Law enforcement, again, from that aspect, I don't know your staffing, so that would have to come from your city folks to tell us whether you can handle that or not, and what would be necessary to bring from outside resources. I know in Hillsborough, it's not just a City of Hillsborough Police Department that we work with. We work with County Reserve, Tualatin Reserve, and Tualatin Fire Department. Multiple agencies come in and assist with the event. And they are part of our grant program that helps fund some of that activity as well. Maybe that helps answer some of that.
Could you speak to the volunteer coordination that you also provide?
So yeah, we have a staff member on my small staff that's what one of her functions is, volunteer coordination. At the event in Hillsborough, we have about 1,000 people that she oversees to pull the event off. I don't anticipate nearly that number here. Initially, it'll be much smaller. We do several activities there that have evolved over 30 years. I don't anticipate seeing that footprint here for several years. But that's one of her roles, is to coordinate the volunteer effort that is necessary to pull the event off, make it successful.
David?
I just want to make sure I understood correctly that you would need a binding commitment from the city by July 1st that we would be able to provide at no cost to the air show, the fire, EMS,
law enforcement services along with the other items on your proposal?
Actually, prior to that, if we wanted to meet the July 1 date, I would need a few days at minimum, if that meant I'm running around getting the signatures of the 2535. That would be...
So in 45 days, you would need a binding commitment from the city that it would be committing these resources to this event in 2018?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Matt, can you comment on that?
Yes. I appreciate Bill's presentation, and I know when we met maybe 9 months ago now, I know there were some concerns. I know there continues to be concerns. I spoke with the fire chief last week, and I don't want to steal any of your thunder here, but we, as public safety leaders in the city, do have some concerns, some very significant concerns, whether or not we can pull this off in, one, a short period of time, and two, our locale is much different than that of Hillsborough, Beaverton, which we're kind of on an island down here. We would, I would say, are the big brother down here, and we've got a staff of, well, right now we've got about 35 people. That would include myself. And, you know, when we're dealing with Hillsborough, Beaverton, you're dealing with, you know, agencies, 100 plus sworn per agency, and plus those agencies with the sheriff's office up there is a large sheriff's office. Again, I don't want to speak, actually I will speak for Rich, because he did ask for me if I was given the opportunity to speak. We do have some significant concerns right now with being able to pull this off safely, and that we have the commitments in place, and a 45-day window is extremely short and small. So I would be remiss if I did not say that law enforcement, fire do have some really significant concerns with pulling this off right now.
Thank you. This is the first that I understood that there had to be a binding commitment in place by that date, so that's why I wanted to get clarification on that. And I appreciate the position you're in. If you're dropping paperwork on the Pentagon, you want to be darn certain you're going to be able to follow through on the commitment you're making.
I think that the main reason, there are shows that have put that paperwork in without a commitment, and then when the commitment doesn't come through, the political capital that was spent was wasted. And we don't want to do that for the community here, nor for our entity either. And I think most of you know, or if you don't know, this process did begin quite some time ago, and we had a little bit of a time setback with some changes with the city that caused us to start over again with city manager position changing. We understand that normal timelines, it takes a little bit of time for a city to go through and review such a proposal. It's our interest to continue, whether we get it pulled off by this July 1 or the next July 1, then all that means is we push it down the road. And we're still very interested, and we'd like to continue the discussion and move things forward as quickly as we can, and answer the questions and get everything resolved so that both law enforcement and your fire professionals are comfortable proceeding.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I appreciate your willingness to be flexible on this, because right now I'm looking more like 2019 than 18. There's just too many risks involved to make a binding agreement for 2018. I think we need, as a council and as a community, at least another year to plan how we can do this right. My biggest fear is that we really try hard to make this work, and it's kind of a dump. It doesn't quite work well, and we have a lot of problems. No one's wanting to come back, and it could make a really bad scar on McMinnville. So I just would rather be a little bit more conservative in our timetable for that.
That said, we're very enthusiastic about the long-range effects of the show. It's just a real concern that we do it right the first time.
We certainly can appreciate that, and our intention would be to have a safe event whenever that first event is. And if it's a push out to get everything taken care of with the various departments, we're okay with that. We've been around 30 years. We intend to be around for hopefully a lot more, and we'd much rather do it right than do it quick. The only, if there weren't barriers for this year, the deadline's July 1. But the same deadline will be there next year and the year after and the year after. So.
And is that deadline just for those jet teams? That's not for to have the
Correct.
show in general?
That is for, yes, the U.S. jet teams and the single ship jet teams. The single ships are on a 1-year rotating calendar, and the jet teams are on a 2-year calendar. So that's just the importance of that.
As far as our site goes, what's your, I know I've been up to your Hillsborough show 4 times in the last 10 years, and you guys do close some roads off, Brookwood and I believe Evergreen get closed off for approach and whatnot. What's your anticipation as far as Highway 26 is a lot farther away than Highway 18 is from our site? So are you trying to get with ODOT to divert traffic, or is there not going to be any flights over that? Or
well, you can fly over certain highways. We close Evergreen when we have the U.S. jet teams. Their box does extend over that, so we do close that for about an hour and a half. And then Brookwood, we close for the bulk of the air show. And we work with the city on both of those to close those. If anything were to, I don't believe our planning is to encroach upon 18. That's the highway in between the airport and the museum. No.
Yeah.
No.
But like Airport Road, Crookshank Road.
Correct.
Amity-Dayton Highway for that
there will be
secondary runway?
During the actual box activity, there will be some roads like that would be impacted that we would work with the city on to close, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Those are all county, correct?
They would be, yes.
The county, okay.
So if I may just summarize what I'm hearing, again, Bill, thank you for making the presentation. I hear a strong desire on your part to work with us, whatever that may look like, to bring a quality event to our community. I think you've heard from the council a real a desire to see this possibly work. There's pros and cons, and I think I heard that there could even be some grant program to help accomplish some of the things that may need to be done, but it would have to be a working hand relationship with us both coming to agree that those are the things that need to happen. One question that I would have, and I don't know that you would have the answer to that, but something that I would like to look into is to contact Hillsborough and see what the cost to the city is and weigh out the benefit, because we're very pro marketing our community. We're doing some really good things with the wine industry and some of the uniqueness of our downtown, and this could be another event that would just bring people to recognize the beauty of McMinnville, along with the event center across the street and the Air Museum. There's a lot of positives from my perspective, but again, it's got to be done right. And so from my perspective, and I'll just throw this out, I'm hearing a desire to move forward cautiously and having the kind of dialogue that we've not been able to have for the last 8 months with the things that have been changing in the city. Am I hearing what you're saying?
I would agree.
Yeah.
I'd definitely like to move forward.
Okay, Alan?
I'd like to see us move forward. I'm like Jody. I'd like to see economic development, whether it's short-term or long-term. We like that coming into the city. But the scope of this is so much more broad than what we've had in the past. I go back 40 years. I can't remember anything close to this. Maybe some of you have been here longer to have seen something this scope that would require the resources of the city to be focused in on a project like this. It's kind of an unknown, too. We don't know the ramifications, but it sure sounds exciting. It'd be neat to research it a little bit more.
Well, along with that, Alan, understanding that we have the ability to build it right if we are cautious and doing it the right way. And Bill, I'm guessing that's what you would like to see. Build this event right for our community and for you. And that's where that communication and the dialogue and I think, to staff what I'm hearing is a desire to move forward and to explore, but not looking at 2018 right now. Definitely, we will not be in a position to have a binding contract by the late part of June. I don't think I hear that from anyone.
When is the show this year? It's not even before July, right?
The which show? Or Hillsborough?
Hillsborough one, is it? Like
it's in
late
September.
June? Oh, September?
Yes, September 22nd.
Yeah, so I would agree with that there's no way that our staff are going to have the opportunity to work with Hillsborough staff to get a real cohesive feel of what their obligations are going to be.
Well, that would be, keep in mind, that's 10 months in advance of the proposed show here. So it's, if we push to 19, you'd have 2 air shows to attend prior to a 19 air show here.
And go ahead, David.
But I think the concern is that we haven't had our law enforcement, fire, and EMS personnel out there on the grounds for the Hillsborough Air Show or any other air show other than maybe as spectators themselves. And if we're going to sit down and have a productive conversation with you, mapping out a resource commitment from the city and understanding what we need to be able to provide and bring to the table and what the limitations are going to be on that, we need that opportunity to have the staff be there probably for the one event to be able to start a productive conversation and then for a second event to help fine-tune the processes going into your next show.
Certainly, I think that's, hearing the concerns, I think that's a great next step for any of you that have not attended or would like to attend again so you can see what it is that we do. Certainly the law enforcement and fire chief as well, or any of the other staff, so that they can interface with and participate in our incident action planning meeting, our morning briefs each morning, understand the value of the air show, what it brings to the departments from a training perspective. It's a great community resource that also can be captured for the departments, and they need to evaluate that for themselves, obviously. And I think attending and meeting their colleagues, whom they probably already know, but seeing them in that capacity and what they do and at what levels and why they're at certain levels would be valuable, I think.
Great. Any further questions for Bill? If not, Bill, thank you for your presentation, but more importantly, for listening to our concerns. It just shows me that I can see a partnership being built, and if we do this right.
Well, it's the only way we're interested. So it's we want to be a partner to the community if this does work. So we appreciate your time, and I know I took a lot of time on the agenda, so thank you.
It's an important discussion, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with that, it moves us to our resolutions this evening. And so our first resolution that's on the table is Resolution 2017-32, a resolution initiating the processing and setting a date and time for a public hearing to vacate a portion of Northeast Macy Street, RV 117. And so I'll call on Mike to kind of set our discussion, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'll refer you to the staff memo that's in your packet that outline the request that's before you this evening. The city has received a letter from the Yamhill County Gospel Rescue Mission, as well as H&R Birch Limited Partnership, the 2 adjacent property owners related to the vacation request. They have asked that the city council initiate a vacation process to release that area that's no longer needed for city purposes. So there's a map on the screen for you that orients you to the request. It's a portion of Macy Street south of 14th that's adjacent to the Yamhill County Gospel Rescue Mission's property. The property to the east is the property owned by H&R Birch Limited. In the late 90s, when the city improved Lafayette Avenue, we created a connection from 13th Way over to 14th so that that area accesses the traffic signal at Lafayette and Riverside, At that time, the street connection between 14th and Macy was closed. There are site distance issues with that connection, and so you're no longer able to either enter onto Macy or off of Macy onto 14th at that intersection. It's actually a curb and a sidewalk across that frontage. There are utilities within the public right-of-way, but since that time, the area has been accessed off of 13th. And so, as I understand it, if the vacation were to proceed, the area would be returned to the adjacent property owners, and the Birch Partnership has indicated that they would donate their portion to the mission. That would allow the mission to create additional parking that is currently not available to the site, which would allow them to further proceed with the expansion plans that they have for the site. As outlined in the memo, there are two processes that can be used for a vacation. One is a petition process initiated by property owners that requires signatures from an extensive area within 400 feet of the vacated area. The second process is a city-initiated process where the city can determine that they want to initiate the vacation process and move forward with the required hearing. Historically, the city has preferred not to initiate vacation processes if one or more of the adjacent property owners objects to the proceedings. In this particular case, both adjacent property owners have requested that the process move forward. So once the process is initiated, the actual formal process is identical. If the council adopts the resolution this evening, it'll set a public hearing date and time. We'll provide notice to all of those area residents that would be part of the signature process, so that they receive notice that the action is being considered by the council. We'll also notify all public utilities that might have an interest in that space and allow for them to provide comment, and then post notice both at the site and publish notice in the newspaper. So with that, staff's recommendation and that of the Affordable Housing Task Force is that the council initiate this vacation process and allow the hearing to take place, after which you can determine whether or not you want to formally vacate the area. So I do know that there are representatives here this evening from the mission if you have questions, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions you might have on the process.
Thank you, Mike. I recognize Kay and David are here, and so from the Gospel Rescue Mission. And so let's open it up for discussion. Any discussion at the council level this evening on this resolution?
I've got one, Mayor.
Go ahead, Alan.
I know we're trying to set a date for a public hearing, so this will probably come out, but I wasn't able to visually see 13th and Macy up there. I went down 14th. Who are the property owners at the corners of Macy and 13th? Do we know? In other words, the yellow part is what's the vacation, right?
Correct.
So,
the lot that's on the west side of Macy is privately held.
Okay.
The property on the east side is all part of the Birch Limited Partnership.
It's part of Birch there. Mm-hmm. And is that street fully improved at that point?
It is not.
It is not.
It's gravel and
okay,
some paving, sort of.
Further discussions? If we have no further discussions, I'll ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2017-32, initiating the proceedings and setting a date and time for a public hearing to vacate a portion of Northeast Macy Street, RV 117.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved by Council President Mackey and seconded by Councilor Stassens. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay. This resolution has passed unanimously. Thank you. Our second resolution this evening is 2017-33, a resolution approving a waiver of deed restriction. And so, David, I'll turn call on you to give us some background.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This matter comes before you tonight at the request of Lend-Lease Parallel Infrastructure by official letter that we received on April 17th of this year following a series of conversations. They're requesting that the city grant a deed waiver or a waiver of a deed restriction on property located at 3950 Southeast 3 Mile Lane. That property is part of a series of properties that together were sold by the city to Evergreen Helicopters Incorporated in 1971 for the sum total of $25,000 and a commitment from Evergreen that they construct $200,000 worth of buildings and improvements on the site. The city, at the time that they granted the deed and sold the property to Evergreen, held back 5 deed restrictions, which included one, that the owner of the property confine their business operations to the storing, servicing, operating, and repairing of helicopters. Second, that no structures be put onto the site greater than 100 feet in height above ground level. Third, that there be no interference or activities on the property that would interfere with radio and radar facilities at the adjacent airport. Fourth, that the city retained a right of first refusal should the property be sold in the future. And 5, that the city reserved a right of flight passage and noise in the airspace above the property. The requester tonight, Lend-Lease and Parallel Infrastructure, have negotiated a lease with the owner of the property, the current owner of the property, to construct a telecommunications tower on the property. The proposed height for that telecommunications tower, I think that the tower structure itself is maybe 130 feet, but all the apparatus high on top of it would extend to 135 feet, which exceeds the height restriction in the deed. Therefore, they've come and requested that the council take action tonight or consider a request from them to execute a waiver of deed restriction to relieve them from the 100-foot height limit. I believe that there may be individuals here this evening from those entities, very good, which I asked to come and present the request to the council since staff is making no recommendation one way or the other on this request.
Okay. And so if we could have you come forward and indicate your name and address, and we'll take some information from you and have an opportunity to have a good discussion.
So my name is Brandon Olson. Not from McMinnville, from Malala.
Okay.
But I represent Parallel Lend-Lease. For this discussion, you can just call us Parallel. It's much simpler. We're a tower developer with an anchor tenant. That's how we selected this location. So Verizon Wireless is our anchor tenant. And they give us a location where they say we have coverage loss in the area or need expanded coverage because of capacity. This particular one happens to be the Evergreen Museum. A lot of people visit it, so their signals go down in that area. They can't handle the coverage, so they need to expand their coverage and capacity. So we found the facility, sited it, permitted it, zoned it, checked it with the FAA and ODA to make sure we were in compliance, and then found out we were and could get everything approved, and now we're addressing the deed restriction.
Okay.
If we couldn't get it approved, there's no need to be here. The reason for 130 in particular is we're trying to make sure that there's only one structure. So when we develop a tower, we look at it from the standpoint of it has to be able to handle multiple tenants. 100 feet was about Verizon's minimum, and most carriers are about the same for that area because of topography and what they want to see over buildings and into buildings. They want to be able to hand off down towards downtown here and the hospital. There's some existing infrastructure there. And then to the north, that residential neighborhood. So if I want to provide for multiple tenants without putting in a second tower, then we needed the extra height. Actually, since this proposal went in, we have an application for a second tenant already in T-Mobile. So we're already looking at 2 tenants being on the tower. We also look for least intrusive method whenever we do these. So it was selected because the zone was industrial, trying to keep it away from residential, even out of commercial if we can. We try with least intrusive to make sure the structure is as clean as possible. If we needed to do a tree or something like that, we would obviously look at those things. But unfortunately, ODA recommended this thing be lit and marked, which means it's striped for aviation reasons because it's near the airport. So I can't really do that with a stealth structure. I can't have a nice glowing tree. So that was the process we walked through to get here today. And then we're just looking to you guys to see if you would waive that deed restriction so we can build the full height.
Thank you. Let's open it up for discussion and questions. Alan?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Thank you. We've been looking at this and trying to get a scope of how high this would go. And this would be a completely new structure, correct?
Correct. Brand new. So this particular picture here is the entrance to the Evergreen. On the little map, I had to reference it. So this is the driveway you would go into the museum. So it's looking across the highway, basically, that's southeast. That's the 130-foot height represented to scale that our architects drew up for us, best representing the color the tower is going to be with a single tenant. That was our anchor tenant on top.
And you're talking about multiple tenants on this. I guess we refer to it as a cell tower, but it has more purposes. Is that right?
Its general purpose is cell tower. It could be used for other things, yes.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about emergency preparedness. And I think it would go a long way in our discussions if we could see some kind of value to the community as far as emergency preparedness and communications in case of emergencies. Have you researched that at all on what capacity there is for emergency purposes?
Yeah, we're happy to always provide our structure. So we just own the physical structure. We do a lot of work up north for Skagit 911, providing them discounted rates to make sure they can provide 911 coverage. We're happy to look at any of that kind of stuff for the city. We're also doing one for Yamhill County right now, and they reserve rights on the tower that we're putting on their property so that they can put their sheriff's equipment on it. Happy to look into that at any point. I can put anybody in touch with our business development group. I'm the builder side, but we're always looking to do that. The tower itself is designed with a lot of capacity in it for the whatever scenarios come up. We also get Wi-Fi companies and stuff like that that look at us. Verizon, T-Mobile's, all those carriers are committed to, 911 service. There's statistics on how many phone calls are generated 911 more than landline these days. So that's one of the, things they always claim is we help provide emergency services by giving capacity and coverage.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin?
Could you explain why this location? Do we have someone who's willing to host it? Because I would think moving it across the street would be a little bit more convenient and easier to hide. Like if it was behind
across the street to the north?
Yeah, to the north.
Well, you have a nice, beautiful aviation museum, and that entity isn't the easiest to work with. This was quicker and easier. It was also in a better zone for us being industrial from a planning standpoint. That seems to be the least intrusive. We were further to the west originally, but there were some difficulties in Verizon needs to hand off, so make connections between one cell tower to the next so there's not a drop call in between. So this was their ultimate objective. It also is working perfectly for T-Mobile. So that's the criteria we look at is, we don't want multiple towers again. So if we can provide that center location that allows them to infill into the neighborhood to the north, the museum, and then hand off to the other cell sites. So the selection was made based on RF engineering data that they gave us. And it's a combination of placement, lats and longs, and additional height. So how far they have to see and what they can do.
I'm generally supportive of it. I mean, it's unfortunate the color, but
I agree. I don't want to have to maintain that.
But it's an industrial area, and it's airports. I mean, they flash lights all. I mean, I don't know.
Adam?
So you talk about handing off and carriers. Is this tower and the heights for this tower just been engineered for Verizon's capability, or have you looked at other carriers networks like AT&T? You mentioned T-Mobile, but you say you're building it to that height so you only have to build one structure, but have you done the due diligence to know that you're only gonna have to build one structure?
Yeah, the way it starts off is we get it initiated from a single carrier usually. The marketing team initially shops it right to the other carriers. We don't make money unless we have the means to prove that there can be multiple tenants. So from my standpoint, I'm the engineering backbone. It can handle 4 tenants, very large tenants. So Verizon usually has the biggest equipment load. It could handle 4 Verizon level. That's usually Verizon and AT&T. Sprint and T-Mobile have a reduced load that gives us some capacity, and then we always build in additional criteria for 911, microwave, point-to-point stuff, business provider, stuff like that. So the structure can handle that, as well as from an RF engineering standpoint, there's propagation maps that we get from all the carriers. They all show this area as a whole, and it's all centralized here. So that was selected with that in mind as well, that the coverage should work. And like I said at the beginning, T-Mobile has already put in an application as second tenant on the tower, showing that it would work.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions?
Mr. Mayor, could I speak to this?
Yes, go ahead, David. Why don't you go so we can pick it up? So.
Yeah, you can be on TV for a while.
I'm glad this is being addressed. Dave Adams, KLYC Radio. We embark on something called street level radio, where we do a lot of broadcasting. That's a big hole over there. And when you look at tourism, whenever we are covering an event at Evergreen, or trying to do some live reports from out there, we use the Verizon network a lot. And that is a huge hole for us. If we're at Evergreen covering an event, we have major issues especially when Evergreen starts to fill up with cell phone users. We can't get reports out of there. It makes it difficult to cover issues over there, either from a news standpoint, a breaking news story, or just community events. As they're looking at developing Evergreen to be a tourist destination, especially with the Falls Event Center, that area needs to have better cell service. The wine sip event, the Sip Classic, was a huge problem for us to get reports out of there. There just wasn't the coverage. And when people started to come and turn on their phones, it just disappeared. We need that hole filled. So,
thus, Dave, if you're having problems, then the individual users are having problems using their equipment?
Yeah. So we need it, they need it, and I'd strongly encourage considering this proposal.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. I'm going to step out and ask Jody, would you come forward and just talk from an airport commission standpoint? Again, I know this has not been brought up before the commission, but you've been on the commission and you're the chair. Any concerns you would see from that perspective? And again, I'm putting another hat on, and you've not had a chance to talk to the commission. We've got Councillor Rudin, who's on the commission, but between the two of you, any concern that you would see from a airport perspective?
I'm looking to technical support over here. This is the first that I've heard of it. I was not aware that this was happening. So if there's no concern from staff regarding the tower going up, it looks like we have a clear definition from the Department of Aviation. I would trust their recommendation. I think that obviously it goes through a very lengthy process, and I would imagine that every aspect of this particular development is looked at. But I don't have experience with this particular topic.
I just wanted to get a sense, if you had a sense from the makeup of your commission, that they would...
I think our concern would it have any impact on the ability for aircraft to land or take off at the airport? And obviously, going through the Department of Aviation, that would have been vetted, and so that would have stopped the process. There's a protection for that area.
FAA as well. So they've passed both those musters. It's not on airport property.
Right.
It wasn't a matter that was brought before the airport commission since they don't have standing on the matter. So.
I understand, but I just wanted to get a sense in that she was sitting back there and just wanted to put another hat on.
Keeping my attention. Well, I appreciate that because we want to protect the activity at the airport, and I believe that having gone through this process, that has been done. That would be my understanding. So
thank you, Jody. Any other discussion?
I just have one more quick question.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Obviously, seismic is on our mind tonight. What, with regards to the construction and these towers, what special precautions are taken to make sure that in the event of a major seismic event, that the tower would stay up and continue to function as it should?
Without going into too much detail, because I have this background as the developer, the initial step is a geotechnical report. Drill down, know the soils. That report's given to an engineer that specializes in tower manufacturing. So they're required to follow state code, local jurisdiction, and federal G code, which has really been expanded to take into topographical, seismic, and then the constraints of the area. So if you're in a high urban area. So those levels are all put on there, stamped by an engineer, submitted through the building department, and vetted. It's an overburdened code, just in layman's terms, to really plan for whatever. So if there was an earthquake with liquefiable soils, it's supposed to account for that to keep that thing from toppling over. Another siting requirement we're doing just because of that is put it in an industrial zone where it limits the impacts in that worst case scenario that you can't plan for.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other? Adam?
As far as size of this thing goes, diameter-wise, is it any bigger than other cell towers you see out by, like, John Deere or throughout the community? I mean, I've read your specs, and it says it's going to be about 4 feet wide at the base and 18 inches at the top, but...
Yeah, that's pretty much average. There is one across from the fairgrounds that's pretty representative of that. That one's a little wider at the base. I just happen to know that one because I put it in like 15 years ago. But it's pretty average. We try to keep it to a monopole, which is the slimmest design we can do. So sections of it are white. It'll look real slim in those sections. But,
thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty average.
Okay. David?
Did I hear agreement in a meeting of the minds here that as a part of that there be an exchange of the height restriction for reservation of rights for the city to put emergency communications equipment on there?
That's what I'm thinking.
I heard the question.
Yeah, I know. Well, we didn't talk about it at all. So I
have to have this legal document in 2 days.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. But anyway, if I could just say a little bit more on that, thank you, David. Is that we have a good segment of our community do not like tall things going up. So this, and understood, 1971, the deed restriction was placed upon the property, and cell phone technology was almost, well, not even born yet. So, and I know that cell phone towers normally go over 100 feet now, typically. And it is located in an industrial zone, which we have a lot of that type activity going on. But I'd recommend myself personally that we not approve this tonight. I'm sorry about your 2 days. But I'd like to get more discussion on what it can do for the community, McMinnville specifically, but the Yamhill County in a more of a broader sense for telecommunications in case of emergency and emergency preparedness. I would just like to have more of a conversation with that. That's just me.
I do know that sitting on the YCOM board, the Dayton area out there, which this would solidify that coverage area out there, that is a weak point, and they were just looking at moving something on top of the Dayton Fire Department to try and bolster that, I guess. So I think that this would be a benefit to that if we could have rights reserved on that tower. I think it could be a benefit in that nature.
As a tenant.
As a tenant, yeah.
So I'm kind of coming back to David and just the discussion you had. Did you get your questions answered?
I think if the council wanted to go that road, there would obviously need to be some conversations that we would have about what types of what the reservation of rights would look like, and what our needs and expectations would be, what your needs and expectations would be. Look at existing language that's out there where those things have been done in the past and see what we could come up with. But we certainly wouldn't be prepared to reach any kind of agreements on that tonight, I wouldn't think.
Okay.
So.
And then any other input to us before I kind of call on where we need to go?
No, I mean, we're willing to entertain helping the city.
Okay.
How you guys can define that to me helps me make a quicker decision, so.
Great. JW?
Can I come up and say one thing?
Yes.
Sorry.
You're not the chair.
JW, 624 Northeast 2nd Street. It just dawned on me, you guys are giving away a right. The landowner gets a lot of money per month for the cell tower. So what you're giving away is monetary value. So it's perfectly right to ask for the emergency stuff, but you could also ask for money on a monthly basis. So it's a pretty good revenue stream.
But we don't own the property.
No, but you own the air rights. You're giving away something. Okay. So I don't see why you can't charge for that or ask for the right to put something on there. I mean, they're not going to build it if you don't do it, so you can be paid.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Okay. Our financial advisor, JW.
Yeah, one other question. I'd just like Matt to comment on this from an emergency standpoint. Could you comment on it, the tower, for the use of emergency purposes?
Well, I do know.
I don't know that the city would be actually using it. It'd be the county, right? Correct, if we placed something.
Yeah, like Wycom, their radio equipment's owned by the county, so I can't speak to that. I do know that our radios for a while out there, that is, he's correct, that is a bit of, for us out there, a dead zone. It's, for whatever reason, it lacks capacity out there, so. Yeah, but for Wycom purposes, I couldn't speak on that, on the emergency management piece, other than.
Yeah, it would be county that would make that decision, but it is good to know from your perspective, that is a dead zone, so.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt and Kelly. Adam?
David, is it something that we could move forward with, providing that the city / Wycom is reserved space for emergency services?
I would prefer to see this come back, whether it's within 2 weeks or 4 weeks, once we've had a chance to identify what those needs are, to make sure that we've got language that the council's happy with, that it meets all of your interests.
Sounds good to me.
And so,
and it may be that we're not able to reach an agreement on terms, and it needs to come back to the council to consider where we are.
So again, if I could summarize, I'm hearing a direction to direct staff to negotiate the use or a piece of the tower for emergency and emergency management equipment, and see what that might look like, and to do that at the soonest possible time frame, so we could be back within 2 weeks, so that you could move forward given the criteria, and have staff do that. So, am I getting an agreement from council?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So we'll instruct staff, and who's that going to be going through? Is it?
That'll be me.
David. Okay, so city attorney, Brandon, to get together, and again, a desire to get to the end as quickly as possible on your behalf and on our behalf. Thank you for your presentation this evening. Okay, with that resolution, what that does is it takes us to the advice and informational items tonight. We still have lots to do still. So I'm one that's telling you always to come prepared and keep us abreast with the commissions and the boards and committees you're on, but I'm going to forego that tonight. At this point, we are going to leave and go into executive session under ORS 192-66-2D to conduct deliberations with persons designed to carry out labor negotiations. We will keep this meeting opened, go in deliberate, to have deliberations come back. We may then have a discussion when we come back. We may not. We'll close and then we'll go right into the urban renewal meeting. And I know many of you are here. Turn on your music and dance or have a good time. We'll be right back. No discussion at the dais on executive session at this time. So I'm just going to go very quickly around with counselors. Any items that you want to bring before council before I close the council meeting? We have lost a Counselor Stassen who had kids that needed a mom because Dad's traveling. So we've lost Wendy. Alan is here and he'll be with us in just a moment. I'm just going to go to staff. Anything for the group tonight, Matt, Marcia, Scott? I know you're out in the Heather, Mike, Melissa, David.
Yes.
Good.
I have something.
Good.
McMinnville Municipal Court undertook, starting April 3rd, the beginnings of what we call a clean slate program, which is a program we're offering to individuals in the community that are delinquent with the court on fines and fees. It's a 6-month program that offers to those individuals the opportunity to pay off in full their outstanding fines and fees with the court at 50 cents on the dollar, so long as they pay the entire amount in full. We had kind of a soft rollout on this. There hasn't been a lot of publicity. We put the word out in some areas, and in April we brought in a typical month, we will see anywhere from $35,000 to $45,000 in revenues through the municipal court and fines and fees. In April, we saw roughly $60,000 come in. 19,000 of that was attributable to the Clean Slate program. So we've got 5 more months of that, and then at the end of that period, we're going to enter a new phase of a little more aggressive collections on the fines and fees. So we're offering folks an opportunity on the front end for 6 months to get good with the court before we start looking at another way of going about collecting those fees. So,
thank you, David.
Yep.
Good to hear that. I know we had quite a bit of discussion whether this was the right time to do that. It sounds like it's doing what we've anticipated it to do. Jeff, anything for...
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close our regular city council at this time.